That's not a knock against him. He looks like a freshman quarterback. He is a freshman quarterback. The offense is inert. The running game is non-existent. Offensive line is not good. Florida's defense has always been a solid defense, but no one's defense has managed to stop this running attack. I mean, I don't see it. And I certainly don't see it with a certain level of trash talk. Right? Like, if I think I can beat somebody at something, I have to be real sure before the trash starts flowing. I do. You don't talk trash if you can't back it up, right? Like, that's our whole thing. That's the whole thing, not to derail the conversation, but that's the whole thing with Lonzo Ball and his dad. His dad is trash talking for his son, who's a rookie, who is absolutely a rookie and is going to get run over by just about everybody in this league. The poor guy, his dad went ahead and taunted John Wall and the Wizards. So now Lonzo's going to have to figure out how to score on John Wall. I don't even know how that's going to happen. I'm just saying the trash talk there is fine if you can back it up. But don't put yourself in a position to back up something you didn't have to. You didn't have to. It's like poor Lonzo, but I have no pity for Florida. You have the players coming out here and going, yeah, we own Georgia. Not for long. You don't. I mean, it's like they're not watching the same sport the rest of us are watching. There's a certain level at which confidence simply turns into stupid. Where trash talk means nothing. And we have ventured into that dangerous territory. I dare to argue Florida now lives there. We are now living in this dangerous territory. Now you're just giving bulletin board material to a team that is better than you. Like, if you thought you were actually better than them, that would be one thing. That would be one thing. But I don't think that Florida thinks that they are actually better than Georgia. Where is this confidence coming from? Because you happen every Saturday to put on blue? Look. If you win, it will be the biggest game on Saturday. If you lose, you will be a footnote. What kind of trash talk is that? The best kind of trash talk is when everybody on both sides is very much into it. You don't know which way this game is going to go. I feel like I know which way this game is going to go. Because I'm not crazy. Because I've watched every single Georgia game this season. And I've watched, unfortunately, every single Florida game this season. And I'm telling you, Florida struggles to score. They manage to score, which is an impressive feat into itself, and I suppose I can give you credit for that. But you struggle to do it. Like, it doesn't look natural when you do it. Clutch with Keon Rose on Nooga Radio. NoogaRadio.com. 92.7 FM. So I was thinking a lot about these young quarterbacks in the league, because I noticed that a lot of experts are hesitant to say that these guys are good. Right? We are hesitating to say that these guys are good. You want to hesitate and say that Carson Wentz is good. You want to hesitate and say Deshaun Watson and Jared Goff. You hesitate to say that these young guys look good, right? In large part because it keeps with the narrative that we've had in the NFL for the last however many years, and I always said it was overrated, that the quarterback position is dead, college football doesn't produce great quarterbacks anymore, yada, 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 yada. And it just went on and on and on. Now, we're trying to keep in line with that, but it's obviously proving to not be true. And so now we have to come up with something else. And so now we're just hesitating to say that these guys are good. You say that they're good, but you question whether or not that they can be great. And you question whether or not that anybody has that franchise caliber game in them. And I'm saying pretty much all of these guys do. Jury's still out on Jameis. Okay, like Jameis is out here not like underperforming. They gave that guy all the weapons in the world, and they're just an average looking football team. And I would think that Jameis, being in year 3 now, managing to be healthy through his entire time as Bucs quarterback, and with all the weapons in the world, would have his football team looking something better than average. That would be my hope there for Jameis. So I'm not sold out on Jameis. But all these other guys that look good because they're good, right? Deshaun, Dak, Goff, Wentz. Like, they look good because they're good, right? But we hesitate to make these kinds of decisions. And part of it is we live in a society, thanks, I think, in large part to the internet, but we live in a society where you have to make decisions on these things very, very quickly, right? You have to make a decision on a guy fast. And I forgot Mariota on that list. I think Mariota is one of those guys, too, that's just like, man, he looks good. And he looks good because he's good. But you have to make a decision on guys very, very quickly a lot of times, because nobody wants to be the person that was second when it comes to figuring out whether or not a player was good. It doesn't do you any good online. It doesn't do you any good when you're blogging. It doesn't do you any good on social media to be second. Nobody wants to be second. Everybody wants to be first. So we rush a whole lot of this analysis before it's ready. But once somebody is actually good, nobody wants to be the person that's wrong either, right? Like, we just have a fear of being wrong, which I think is crazy. I don't think you should be afraid of being wrong. What's the harm in being wrong on that? Except you have to apologize, maybe walk it back. But you haven't offended anybody. You haven't made fun of anybody. You haven't called anybody names. You haven't taken away anybody's humanity. You haven't been, homophobic, racist, or sexist. You just simply hitched your wagon to the wrong horse. I mean, what's wrong with that ultimately? And so we hesitate to pronounce guys as being really good when we can just go ahead and say they're good. What's the harm in that? Right? Like, I look at all these guys and I go, they're good. They're good. The future of the NFL looks like it's in tremendously capable hands with a lot of these young guys, right? Like, we're not going to lose Tom Brady and go, well, where's our next star? Are we going to have to rely on Matt Ryan and Matthew Stafford? Right? Like, we're coming to that point where we needed a new set of young guys, and they're here. A lot of them in their first, second, and third year, but very much looking the part of franchise quarterbacks. Right? Like, it's not as rare as we're making it out to be. And so yesterday I was watching this YouTube channel. It's the Company Man on YouTube is the name of the YouTube channel, and he talks about rap music, which you may or may not be interested in, right? And one of my favorite rap albums, Good Kid, Mad City by Kendrick Lamar, it turned 5 yesterday, which makes me feel impossibly old. I feels like it was yesterday when that album came out, but that album turned 5, and he did a really good job in the video of going back through the reviews of that album, and people were wanting to call that album a classic. And now when you look back on that album, it is a classic, right? But people were wanting to call the album a classic when it came out, but they were afraid to call it a classic when it came out because nobody wants to be the person to declare something an instant classic and then be wrong. But what would have been the worst thing imaginable if you had declared something an instant classic and then you found out, well, maybe it doesn't hold up as much as I thought? What's the worst thing that happens there? Because very often I think we know when something's great. Okay? You got to trust yourself a little bit more on these things because like when you sit down and you watch a quarterback, and if you're not being completely biased, right? Because I just don't like the Cowboys and I don't like Dak Prescott. But if I remove my bias about Dak Prescott, he's great. He is. And I don't have to try that hard to come to that conclusion. I don't like the Eagles. I don't. But I got to remove my bias and, oh, look, Carson Wentz, he's great. I don't really have any particular emotions about the Rams. Like, I really don't. I don't have any emotions about Jared Goff at all. But, I'm watching him and I'm like, oh, you give Jared Goff, an offensive-minded coach who understands how to pick apart an NFL defense, simplify it for his young quarterback. And, oh, look, Jared Goff is great. And I don't need to try that hard to come to that conclusion. You don't need to wait years and years and years to figure out whether or not a guy is legitimate or the real deal. You oftentimes know. Now, sometimes you need a larger sample size a lot of times, right? You do. But, I mean, come on. We're talking about guys that are being consistent week in and week out. We're not talking about guys that maybe had a great 2 to 3 game run like Matt Flynn with the Packers, and then he gets overpaid, right? Like, we're not talking about guys that maybe put together half a season or something. We're talking about guys that have entered a league, some of them in their second and third year, right? Where they've made significant improvements and advancements in their games, where they look better than they did a year ago. All of these things are important when you're coming up with a conclusion as to whether or not a guy is good. Yeah, it might be a little bit early on some of these rookies, but even then, they are doing things and making decisions that speak to the fact that they have some longevity to them, right? Like Deshaun Watson is recognizing defenses and making throws based on the defenses that he sees. That tells me that this guy has staying power. It does. That's what that tells me. This is the kind of guy that's going to be around for a while. And I don't need to wait 5 years to find out, right? And this doesn't have to just apply to rap music, by the way. Like, think of an album that came out and you were like, this album is great. Or think of a song that came out and you're like, this song is great. Did you have to wait 5 years for it to be a classic? Or did you know already the song was great? Because I think you knew, right? There's some songs, there's some movies, you watch them and you know right off the bat, this is great. You're watching greatness, right? Like the very first time that anybody got to watch LeBron James on national TV, you didn't have to sit down and go, well, is he going to be a great basketball player? Like, you knew if this guy stays healthy his whole career, he's going to be one of the great ones. And oh, look, he was. Don't have to hesitate on this. You don't have to make this harder than it needs to be. Recognize great and just accept it. Clutch with Keon Rose on Nooga Radio, NoogaRadio.com, 92.7 FM. Shout out to the company, man, by the way. Next.
Traffic, news, and information. Nooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM. 3, 2, 1. Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news now.
2 juveniles have been arrested, but 2 more are on the run after a joyride with a stolen car that started on Neville Road in Ottawa. The Hamilton County Sheriff's Office giving chase. The car wrecked into a junction box for a telephone line on Mountain View Road. 2 juveniles ran off, and 2 others were arrested on scene. The Hamilton County Sheriff's Office and the Chattanooga Police Department trying to track down these 2 young people who escaped. The trial of Skylar Allen is set to begin soon in the Lookout Valley triple murder case, but his attorney is wanting a change of venue because of the high-profile nature of the case. There aren't many people around who would serve as jurors who haven't heard of the case already. A co-defendant, Derek Morris, has already been convicted on those counts of murder and sentenced to life in prison without parole. Matthew Cowan, a survivor of the shooting, testified against Morse. Russell Stroud, Nooga Radio News, now.
Traffic, news, and information. Nooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM. Broadcasting live to over 1 million souls in Chattanooga, the Tennessee Valley, and beyond on frequency modulation 92.7. Sean Hannity, 25,000 watts on digital FM 95.3 HD4. CBS Radio News, NASCAR, Bloomberg Markets, David Tulis, Streaming strong at NoogaRadio.com. Live on YouTube and Facebook. Nooga Radio. News Talk 92.7. Chattanooga Radio.
Goss Insurance. Yes, we are local. And no, we don't have an 800 number. In fact, our mobile numbers are on our business cards. We live, work, play, and worship in Chattanooga, and we would love to help with your insurance. Business, auto, home, life insurance. Call now, save money. Call Goss Insurance for all your insurance needs. Goss Insurance, 875-2500. 875-2500.
Nooga Radio, digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM knows your opinion is important. So call 800-8949. Agree or disagree. Call 423-800-8949. 800-8949. Nooga Radio, 92.7 FM and 95.3 HD4. News Talk Nooga Radio.
You're listening to Nooga Radio and NoogaRadio.com. Clutch with Keon Rose here on 92.7 FM. And I have a question about Cam Newton that I very often ask about Cam Newton, and a lot of people, but mostly Cam. Is Cam Newton 12 years old? I actually don't know sometimes. Right? I am not entirely certain if Cam Newton is 12 years old. Now, here's the thing with Cam, right? He's already gotten into hot water with the media already. He had the way that he treated that female reporter earlier in the year. This really isn't in conjunction to that, really, because this is just a different situation, but it's Cam Newton and the media again. Essentially, Cam Newton is asked a question by the media about big plays, to which Cam Newton responds, next question, and refuses to answer the question before abruptly walking away from the podium and not answering any questions. Now, I don't understand what the purpose of that exercise was, but is Cam Newton a fully grown adult? And I must ask this question because the question that was asked of Cam Newton, to me, wasn't worth what he did. He could have just answered the question. He could, and because it was a yes or no question, which journalists are never supposed to ask anyway. And he could have just said yes. Didn't even have to answer how, just yes. He could have completely finessed the answer and come up with something. And this is a footnote in the history of press conferences. We don't even think about it or ever bring it up again. Right? And this is the problem with Cam Newton being the face of a franchise, is that he doesn't seem to have that wherewithal, right? I like Cam the player. I like Cam the player better than most, even though I think that Cam the player this year has been rather stinky. I still like Cam the player better than most people like Cam the player. But Cam the leader, Cam the guy, what's that guy doing? Like, honestly, here's the question that was asked of Cam Newton before he walked off the podium like somebody insulted his family. Big plays, big chunk plays. Get to that energy. I think that's what you're talking about. Does this offense, and I know you had several at Detroit and New England, do you think you guys have the wherewithal to do that consistently week in and week out? Now, in fairness to Cam, that is a very poorly worded question, right? Like, it's kind of hard to believe this man is actually a journalist, but it is a question that is answerable. Right? The question can simply be summarized as making big plays. Can you guys do that consistently? Yes or no? To which Cam Newton could have answered yes or no. He did not answer yes or no. He walked off the podium. Right? But then you wonder why people in the press and people in the media don't treat you fairly. Because you don't treat them well. Right? In a position where you're supposed to be answering questions. This isn't the paparazzi haranguing you on the street, okay? This isn't some dude with a camera popping up with your date with you at a restaurant snapping photos of you and your meal. This is your job. Your job is not just football player. Your job is also to be answerable to the media and to just try to do that, right? Without walking off and making a clown of yourself, which Cam seems to want to do regularly. Why? God only knows. Right? Like, I'm sure God only knows, because I don't have any answers as to why it is that it's possible that this grown man is not capable of acting like a grown man, like when there are cameras running. Even the worst people pretend to be good when there are cameras on them. And Cam's like, I'm not even trying. What's the point? Like, you're the leader, man. And look, this is where I get to, not to make this a political conversation all the time, but this is where I get to with Trump very frequently, because if you ask the question, is Donald Trump the most media scrutinized president in the history of the United States? I mean, you could probably try and deny it, but let's be honest. Yes, he is. He absolutely is the most scrutinized president ever. But let's not act like that's not a monster of his own creation. He went after the media first. There's a reason why you pay someone to do the job of media relations, because everybody knows if you treat the media well, the media will try and treat you well. It's not a hard and fast rule. You will get betrayed at times, but if you try, they try, right? I'm looking at Cam and I'm going, try. Because what ends up happening to you is, if something should so happen to ever go wrong in your life, right? If anything were to go wrong in your life, you understand that the media will be circling you like vultures. And all you had to do was answer some guy's dumb question. How hard would that have been? To just say, yes, I think we can do that consistently week in and week out. How hard would that actually have been? Right? And then the team releases a statement. And of course, the team is doing what Cam couldn't do, which is they're trying to finesse the situation by feeding us like nonsense. The statement that the team released was, quote, Cam didn't intend to be discourteous toward any specific media member. In his mind, after answering questions for 9 minutes, he had fulfilled his obligations. Cam's been doing this for how long now? Has Cam been in the league, what? 9 years? How long's Cam been in the league? Cam's been in the league almost a decade now. Like, no, you haven't fulfilled your media obligations. And also, don't feed us that Cam didn't try and be discourteous towards any specific media member. If he wasn't trying to be discourteous toward any specific media member, he was trying to be discourteous toward the whole media. Because when you walk away without answering someone's questions, you are typically being discourteous and rude. You are. And that's a fact. Right? Like, I'm not making anything up here. Why did he do that? Why is he incapable of answering questions? Why does Cam Newton show up to press conferences after games dressed from head to toe like he's trying to be on the cover of GQ weekly, but won't answer questions? It's silly. It's honestly just silly, because he's way too good and way too talented to be that. Right? Like, people have problems with the media. They do. If you get heckled on social media by a member of the media, I imagine that's not fun. I don't know what it is to be on the receiving end of that, but I know what it is to be on the broadcasting end of that. I harangue people on social media all the time. They typically ignore me, so I know it can be done. But this is at the podium, man, and he was asking you a football question. And to me, this is the thing that bothers me the most, is when someone is asking you a football question and you are a football player and part of your job is to answer football questions. Just answer the football questions. How hard is it? How hard is it? Right? This is one of those things where maybe fans don't understand, but I think we understand well enough, right? Like, it's one of those things to go, you're watching TV, you see somebody drop a pass, let's say Nelson Aguilar, because I don't like Nelson Aguilar. So Nelson Aguilar drops a pass and you're an Eagles fan and you go, oh, he should have just caught it. How hard is it to just catch it? Well, it's really hard to just catch it, right? Like that. If you could catch it, if you could just catch it, you'd be in the NFL too. But this isn't even that. This is answering questions, which everyone on this planet, once they learn how to speak, has done. We've all done it. It's very easy to answer questions. It's very easy to answer questions you don't actually want to answer. Right? If you have a wife, kids, parents, brothers, sisters, teachers, bosses, co-workers, at some point, one of them somewhere asked you a question you didn't want to answer. Did you walk off? Because if you did, that's rude. And I have the same question for you that I have for Cam. Are you 12? But most of us answer the questions, even if we don't want to answer the questions, or we say something along the lines of, nah, I don't really feel like answering that question. I don't feel like answering that. I'm not comfortable answering that. I don't want to answer that. Let's talk about that later. You know, like how adults do. Clutch with Keon Rose on Nooga Radio, NoogaRadio.com. You're on 92.7 FM. It's ridiculous is what it is. It's just flat out ridiculous. Just blows my mind. So we're going to shift gears here on over to the Tennessee Titans because I like Marcus Mariota, as I've mentioned before, and probably many, many times before. He's a talented guy. When you have a guy that he's got that level of pocket awareness, he's got the speed, he's able to make accurate throws, he's accurate, he's deadly inside the red zone. In the last 3 years, almost no one has been more accurate than Marcus Mariota in the red zone. I believe he's top two. I forget who's in front of him, but he's a top two guy in the red zone. And he's, to me, wasting his talent away. Just wasting it away. Because Mike Mularkey is bad at coaching that specific guy. And you see what transformation can happen when offensive guys get with young quarterbacks who are receptive to learning. But for me, like when your team is usually winning football games, when your team is competing and not being all that bad, I'm typically not one to go, hey, let's fire the head coach. But Mularkey doesn't seem to understand what he's got in Mariota. And he doesn't seem to understand the capabilities of this offense. I mean, the talent is all over the place. They can run the ball. They've got a guy who appears to be a franchise-capable quarterback. They've got one of the best offensive lines in football. Who has the best offensive lines in football, right? I mean, it's Dallas, it's Oakland, it's Kansas City, it's Tennessee. I mean, Tennessee's right there. They're a top 5 offensive line at least. At least. So you look at it and go, why can't this team be more successful? Why is this team playing ugly, ugly football and beating the Browns 12-9? It's Mike Mularkey. And I never wanted them to hire Mike Mularkey in the first place. And they went ahead and hired Mike Mularkey. And I complained about Mike Mularkey every year that he has existed as the head football coach of this team. And I'll continue to complain about Mike Mularkey as long as he is the head football coach of this team, because I don't think that he is a good fit for this. I don't. Okay? He's trying to do the whole exotic smash mouth thing. And you know what's insane about that is I think the Titans look better when they're more exotic than smash mouth. I do. When they need Mariota to throw, when they have to stop being conservative, take risks, push the ball down the field, I think the Titans look really good. And because their division is garbage, like there's no good reason that the talent that they have on that roster, they shouldn't win that division. They're better than Houston. They're better than Jacksonville. And everybody's better than Indy. It's Mike Mularkey. It's Mike Mularkey putting his young quarterback under center in a league that is progressively moving away from being under center. Nobody has their quarterback under center more than Mike Mularkey and the Tennessee Titans. And I mean nobody. Percentage of snaps in the league, Titans lead everybody by a mile. Right? And that's teams with bad quarterbacks too. We're talking Josh McCown. We're talking Case Keenum. We're talking Blake Bortles. Nobody puts their quarterback under center that much. And here's Marcus Mariota coming out of college, excelled in a system where he wasn't really under center. Yes, he needs to learn how to do it because it is part of the NFL, but it's an increasingly smaller part of the NFL every single year. Why do you need to have exotic smash mouth? Smash mouth, so far as a style of football is concerned, I don't want to say it's dead, but it's certainly different than how Mike Mularkey wants to run it. Mike Mularkey wants to run this team like they're in the 90s, okay? Which, by the way, is different than what the Jacksonville Jaguars are doing. When they turn around and hand the ball to Leonard Fournette a billion times in a game, they frequently do this because their quarterback is Blake Bortles, right? Like he's their quarterback, and to avoid him having the ball, you just give the ball to a running back. This is not smash mouth. This is give the ball to your best player. But if your best player happens to be the guy who throws the ball, it doesn't make any sense to play a smash mouth style of football. It makes less than no sense. I don't know where Mularkey's coming up with this stuff. I don't think that it's any coincidence, quite frankly, that the man's name is Mularkey, but he's full of it. Okay? They're a top 10 team in rushing yards per game, in rushing yards per attempt, but they're not very effective at it. And the reason why they're top in the league in rushing yards per game is because nobody runs the ball more than them. Yes, they lead in rushing yards per attempt, but that's because they have the best offensive line in football. Imagine for a second if you use that offensive line to let plays develop downfield, to throw the ball more. What that could do for you. But when you lose to the Dolphins 16-10, when you struggle versus the Colts on Monday Night Football, when you have to go into overtime to beat the Browns, you don't score an offensive touchdown. They're the Browns, so you know they didn't score an offensive touchdown. And it was all field goals for you to win that day. Look, and your kicker's good, but really? This is not how you make a playoff push. And make no mistake about it, the Titans are a playoff caliber team. Just by virtue of being in the AFC South, they are a playoff caliber team because they're better than Houston is. And yet, when I look at Houston, Deshaun Watson, he's a rookie, but he's making more dynamic plays than Mariota is. And I don't think it's because he's better than Mariota. I just think that Bill O'Brien is more understanding of the way that the NFL is modernly played, right? Like he understands better how this works than Mike Mularkey seems to. He does. Clutch with Keon Rose on Nooga Radio, noogaradio.com, 92.7 FM. So, LeVar Ball has, we're just going to jump to the NBA here because the story's been on my brain. But LeVar Ball has said, because the Lakers lost the other day, and he said, you know, my son's not losing 2 in a row, so the Wizards better look out. Right? They play the Wizards tonight. The Lakers do. Lonzo Ball is the number 2 pick in the draft. He's probably the most hyped basketball player of the last, 2 to 3 years. We're trying to figure out how good is Lonzo. And I saw Lonzo play in the Detroit game. Lonzo looked pretty good in the Detroit game. In fact, that was the best I've seen of Lonzo so far. And I was worried about Lonzo after that first game where he showed up in the NBA and it looked like, oh boy, he's lost. Buddy is lost. But he's too talented and he sees the floor way too well, in my opinion, to not pan out. When you have vision That's the thing that they can't coach, right? And that's what you always look for when, at least for me, as a guy who just watches sports. That's what I always look for when I try and figure out whether or not a guy is good. Can the guy do the stuff that you can't coach? And I'm not talking about just vague intangibles like leadership and all that stuff. That stuff is important. That's not what I'm looking for, right? But I'm talking about, for instance, in football, pocket presence. It's technically an intangible, but you can't coach pocket presence, right? Either the guy can feel pressure around him or he can't, right? Does he have arm talent, which we use vaguely, but I don't use vaguely at all? Can he change his arm angles to throw around defensive linemen who are raising up their arms to make the passing lanes harder to throw through? You can't really teach it. If the guy doesn't know how to do that before he comes into the league, he kind of doesn't know it. That's pretty much it, right? When you talk about offensive linemen, does he have good feet? You can teach that a little bit, but you would like a guy to have that before he comes into the league. Lonzo has that thing in the NBA, the vision. You can't teach what Lonzo does. Now, Lonzo can't shoot. Lonzo's really not a dynamic, explosive player. Can't really get to the basket whenever he wants to. Doesn't really have a jumper that he can rely on. Doesn't really play defense worth a lick. So there are a lot of things that Lonzo needs to get in order to be a great NBA player. However, all of those things are things you can teach a person to do. You can teach a person to defend. You can teach a person to shoot. You can teach a person not to be more explosive, but to take advantage of the explosiveness that they do have. I mean, Steph Curry's not the most explosive guy in the league, but he gets the cup whenever he wants to, in large part because of those handles and because he also knows how to take advantage of the explosiveness that he's got. Nobody does that better than him. Lonzo can do that in time once he learns how to, but he's got the thing you can't teach. I think he's going to be all right. But I also think that his dad puts him in bad positions. And we talked about whether or not this was going to happen when he got to the NBA. And it was kind of stupid because the way we were originally talking about Lonzo's dad, LeVar, putting him in bad positions was, well, maybe he's going to say stuff to the team and the team is going to have to listen to him maybe. And that's going to put him in. Nobody's going to want to coach a guy because his dad, well, it's not about that. It's about the other players in the league. That if your dad on a nightly basis decides to trash talk all the best guards in the NBA, they are going to light you on fire. Nothing gets a guy going more than bulletin board material. It's a cliche, but there's a reason why that's a cliche, because it works. Everybody gets fired up. Look, the season is 82 games long. It is hard to get going for most nights, right? You have to figure out a way to motivate yourself night after night after night to play the best basketball of your life every single day of your life. And at some point, that grind takes its toll. If somebody offers you a reason to be motivated, a reason to be pumped up, a reason to get going, you're going to take it. And poor Lonzo is the reason why most people will be pumped up and motivated. And look, you're a highly touted rookie. Guys are going to go at you anyway to give you that welcome to the NBA moment. Guys are going to do that to you regardless, right? That was already going to be in the cards for you. Without your dad using his big mouth to absolutely piss off everybody in the NBA. I mean, because this is different from the whole Patrick Beverley thing, right? Like Patrick Beverley roughed up Lonzo to start the NBA season because he's Patrick Beverley, okay? That's just him. Patrick can say that it's got something to do with LeVar. It doesn't. Patrick Beverley is this way to everybody. And that's the thing that we like about him. That's the thing that we respect about him. This got nothing to do with LeVar. LeVar called out the Wizards specifically, and he called out John Wall specifically. That got personal. And I like how, by the way, the Lakers are stepping up around Lonzo going, well, we're not going to take what they said lightly either. We're going to step up in this game. Like, really? You guys stink. Let's not make some supposition that you have any chance of winning this basketball game. It's unbelievable. Yes. Lakers are going to get wrecked tonight, and it's going to be all LeVar Ball's fault. It's going to be entirely his fault. Clutch with Keon Rose on Nooga Radio. NoogaRadio.com 92.7 FM.
The Tennessee Valley's news talk leader. Nooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news now.
2 juveniles have been arrested, but 2 more are on the run after a joyride with a stolen car that started on Neville Road in Ottawa. The Hamilton County Sheriff's Office giving chase. The car wrecked into a junction box for a telephone line on Mountain View Road. 2 juveniles ran off, and 2 others were arrested on scene. The Hamilton County Sheriff's Office and the Chattanooga Police Department trying to track down these 2 young people who escaped. The trial of Skylar Allen is set to begin soon in the Lookout Valley triple murder case, but his attorney is wanting a change of venue because of the high-profile nature of the case. There aren't many people around who would serve as jurors who haven't heard of the case already. A co-defendant, Derek Morris, has already been convicted on those counts of murder and sentenced to life in prison without parole. Matthew Cowan, a survivor of the shooting, testified against Morse. Russell Stroud, Nooga Radio News, now.
The Tennessee Valley's news talk leader. Nooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM.
Power Hour News at noon and 9 being brought to you by Greg's Sandwich Works, featuring the best cuts of meats for your sandwich. Greg's Super Spuds, wraps and the most delicious salads in Chattanooga. Greg's Sandwich Works, 6337 East Brainerd Road, Chattanooga.
As an independent agent, Goss represents more than 50 of the leading companies. Goss does the shopping and you save. Goss Insurance for your auto, business, home, and life insurance. 875-2500 Goss Insurance.
Hey, dude, check this out. Have you ever seen one so big?
Whoa, look at the size of that.
Look at this little itty-bitty one.
Wow, that's really small.
They have them big, small, and everything in between. You'll always find the biggest variety of knives at the knife shop at Frost Cutlery in Ottawa. We're talking about over 40 brands of knives, including Benchmade, WR Case & Sons, Booker, and all the Frost Cutlery brands. Now, Sam, you've been to the cutlery shop. Is it amazing?
Spectacular. The knife shop at Frost Cutlery in Ottawa. They have knives, swords, kitchen knives, ammo, and reloading supplies, plus survival gear.
It's the knife shop at Frost Cutlery, open 7 days a week. Hey, girls, you're going to love this. We're going to the knife shop.
Hey, let's not tell them they have ammo and loading supplies.
The knife shop at Frost Cutlery opens 7 days a week. You'll always find the biggest variety of knives. You're going to love the knife shop at Frost Cutlery in Ottawa. The knife shop.
And tell them David Tulis sent you.
Hi, this is Eric Pelton. Taxes, accounting, business advice. I've got a neat brochure, 12 ways to improve your business profits. Come on by for a free consultation and we'll give you a copy. E.J. Pelton Company. 332-3339.
Cash, 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 and more cash. Watch it gush out of your TV. Rick Davis is on national TV. Wow. Golden diamonds, coins, and more riches. Rick's selling, Rick's buying, and he's on national TV. Watch him Wednesday, 11 p.m., right after the Judy O'Neill Talk Show. North Georgia Cable TV 265. You won't want to miss it. It's a mountain of cash, cash, cash. And it's catching the Hollywood spotlight. And if one day hasn't got your head spinning, how about a second? Rick Davis is on Fridays, Channel 12, 10:30 a.m., right before The Price is Right. You gotta see it to believe it. Wednesday, 11 p.m., North Georgia Cable Channel 265. Friday, 10:30 a.m. on TV 12. 2 big shows every week. Rick Davis Golden Diamonds. You know where it is. Brainerd Road, Chattanooga. Cash, 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 and more cash.
If I were a rich man.
Hey, Mom.
Yes, Summer.
I know what I'd like to do for Christmas this year. Take shoeboxes full of goodies to the homeless military veterans.
What would go into these shoeboxes?
Toothbrushes, toothpaste, dental floss, deodorant, chapsticks, shampoo, soap, hand warmers, hand sanitizer, socks, gloves, toboggans, small Bibles, blankets, snacks, and cough drops.
Where can people donate these items?
Alpine Crest Elementary School, Sonic on Hickson Pike next to Frontrunner, Chick-fil-A in Northgate Mall in Hickson, Greg's Sandwich Works, 6337 East Brainerd Road, and Nooga Radio on Hickson Pike.
When will we distribute the shoeboxes?
On November 10th from 11 to 12:30 and December 15th 15th from 10:30 to 12:30 at the Community Kitchen on East 11th Street, downtown Chattanooga. Please help us in donating these items for our shoebox campaign. No veteran should ever go homeless.
Broadcasting live to over 1 million souls in Chattanooga, the Tennessee Valley, and beyond on frequency modulation 92.7. Sean Hannity, 25,000 watts on digital FM 95.3 HD4. CBS Radio News. NASCAR, Bloomberg Markets, David Tulis, streaming strong at NoogaRadio.com. Live on YouTube and Facebook. Nooga Radio, News Talk 92.7. Chattanooga Radio.
WBLZ HD4 Ottawa, W224AZ Chattanooga,
92.7, digital FM 95.3 HD4 Chattanooga.
The president says he's got plenty of GOP congressional support.
I called it a love fest. It was almost a love fest. Maybe it was a love fest.
A young undocumented immigrant pregnant, wanting an abortion. Now,
after a month of being held hostage, Jane Doe was able to get the care that she needed.
This is the CBS World News Roundup Late Edition. I'm Dave Barrett. The day after he talked issues with Republican senators over lunch on Capitol Hill, President Trump shared his thoughts before flying off to a Dallas fundraiser tonight.
President Trump insisted there's great unity in the GOP.
We're really unified on what we want to do.
That despite the harsh criticism launched at Mr. Trump yesterday by retiring Arizona Senator Jeff Flake.
His poll numbers in Arizona are so low that he couldn't win. And I don't blame him for leaving. I think he did the right thing for himself.
As for Flake's criticism that he's degrading politics,
I think the press makes me more uncivil than I am.
Stephen Portnoy, CBS News, the White House.
President Trump has met with Texas Governor Greg Abbott. They discussed what's been done following Hurricane Harvey.
Mr. President, I applaud you for constantly working with me and the people of the state of Texas to make sure that we recover.
And in response,
we're very proud of our governor. We're very proud you have done something very special. And Dan, we're very proud of all of you guys. And it's true, first responders, military, everybody.
He's pleaded guilty to desertion and other charges. Now, an Army sergeant waits to find the penalty.
I'm Jim Crusul at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Retired Navy SEAL James Hatch testified that one would get hurt or killed searching for Army Sergeant Bo Bergdahl. Hatch was shot in the right leg as he led a mission to rescue Bergdahl, who left his post in Afghanistan. Bergdahl's sentencing hearing will last well into next week.
A pregnant teenager held in Texas as an undocumented immigrant has had an abortion. That procedure carried out today following a federal appeals court ruling, but says ACLU attorney Bridget Amiri.
They literally held Jane Doe hostage and blocked her from accessing an abortion for over a month. Nobody should have to go through that, and we will do everything that we can to prevent anyone from having to go through that again.
Consumers must use arbitration, not the courts, if they want to receive or resolve a problem with a bank or a credit card issuer. It's after the Senate repealed a banking rule. Now, says CBS senior legal analyst Andrew Cohen.
This is bad news for consumers. It's good news for the banking industry, which had lobbied Congress to get rid of the Obama-era rule that would have allowed consumers to get together and file class action lawsuits against financial institutions accused of misconduct.
Need health insurance? An independent study says the most popular plans under Obamacare will go up next year by an average of 34%. Wall Street, the Dow fell 112, NASDAQ dropped 34, S&P lost 11. Now this.
I'm Jay Farner from Quicken Loans. The rate today on a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage is 3.875%, APR 4.05%. But choosing the right mortgage lender means choosing much more than just a rate. Let me ask you, does calling the company with the best client service in America, with 11 J.D. Power Awards to prove it, matter? Does calling the company that invented Rocket Mortgage, the industry's most innovative, client-focused technology, matter? Does calling the company with 17,000 plus team members who are helping to rebuild the great cities of Detroit and Cleveland matter? Of course it matters. No wonder our clients have made Quicken Loans America's #1 online lender. Call Quicken Loans today at 800-QUICKEN or go to rocketmortgage.com for the best mortgage experience on earth. That's 800-QUICKEN.
Call for cost information and conditions. Equal housing lender licensed in all 50 states. NMLSconsumeraccess.org number 3030.
All flights coming to the U.S. from overseas, it's about 2,100 a day, will have to comply with new security measures starting tomorrow. Here's CBS's Vicki Barker.
Air France, Cathay Pacific, Egypt Air, Emirates, and Lufthansa all say they'll start the screenings as early as tomorrow. An administration ban on laptops in the cabins of some Mideast airlines was lifted last March after the carriers improved their screening of U.S.-bound passengers. But airlines were given a 120-day deadline to meet new U.S. security regulations, and that deadline's almost up.
In the Seminole Heights neighborhood of Tampa, where 3 murders have occurred in recent weeks, they keep searching for a suspect. Mayor Bob Buckhorn.
We have been, as you know, saturating this neighborhood for the last 10 days with bodies, both in uniform as well as undercover.
Are they chasing a serial killer? That's not clear. 2 of the victims were killed as they tried to board a bus. You're listening to
3, 2, 1. Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news now.
2 juveniles have been arrested, but 2 more are on the run after a joyride with a stolen car that started on Neville Road in Ottawa. The Hamilton County Sheriff's Office giving chase. The car wrecked into a junction box for a telephone line on Mountain View Road. 2 juveniles ran off, and 2 others were arrested on scene. The Hamilton County Sheriff's Office and the Chattanooga Police Department trying to track down these 2 young people who escaped. The trial of Skylar Allen is set to begin soon in the Lookout Valley triple murder case, but his attorney is wanting a change of venue because of the high-profile nature of the case. There aren't many people around who would serve as jurors who haven't heard of the case already. A co-defendant, Derek Morris, has already been convicted on those counts of murder and sentenced to life in prison without parole. Matthew Cowan, a survivor of the shooting, testified against Morse. Russell Stroud, Nooga Radio News, now.
Traffic, news, and information. Nooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM. Broadcasting live to over 1 million souls in Chattanooga, the Tennessee Valley, and beyond on frequency modulation 92.7. Sean Hannity, 25,000 watts on digital FM 95.3 HD4. CBS Radio News. NASCAR, Bloomberg Markets, David Tulis, streaming strong at NoogaRadio.com. Live on YouTube and Facebook. Nooga Radio, News Talk 92.7. Chattanooga Radio.
You're listening to 92.7 FM, Nooga Radio and NoogaRadio.com. Clutch with Keon Rose, hour number 2 of the show. And I have a breaking story. Broke just an hour ago, which means I get a wonderful sports scoop. I get a local radio scoop now. It's nice. This is a report from SECCountry.com. Tennessee suspends John Kelly, Will Ignont, after they were cited for misdemeanor drug possession. Article written by Blake Morgan of SECCountry.com. Tennessee announced Wednesday that running back John Kelly and linebacker Will Ignont will have been suspended for the game at Kentucky on Saturday. The pair were pulled over Tuesday night, and marijuana was found in the car. The school released the following statement from Vols coach Butch Jones. John Kelly and Will Ignont will be suspended for the Kentucky game as a result of their incident on Tuesday night. Members of our football team have a responsibility to represent the University of Tennessee in a first-class manner. I met with John and Will, and they understand their actions were unacceptable. So this is bad news if you're Tennessee football, and for a lot of reasons, right? It's another mark of lack of control against Butch Jones. It's also you losing your best offensive player before what is arguably one of your more important games this season, right? Like, I don't know that we ever imagined that this year Tennessee football would get to the point where Kentucky would be one of the more important games on their schedule, but they need to snap a losing streak, so that's why it's important. And also, depending on how badly they lose, they might not have a coach, or they might not have the same coach when they return, right? Like, that's a whole thing too. So again, I'm not entirely certain that this helps. All of this, in fact, hurts. None of it looks good. But I will say this, though. I will say this. I mean, I'm going to give props to Butch Jones, at least in handling the suspension, because I've seen coaches that I respect as football guys really just do the wrong thing morally, you know? Like when Cam Robinson got caught with marijuana and possibly weapons in his car, allegedly, and Nick Saban didn't suspend him and didn't give any reason or anything as to what he was going to do to explain why none of that was acceptable behavior to the young man. He just said, hey, you know what, we handle this stuff in-house, which is, okay, maybe you do, but, you know, the most important thing that you can take away from a player to teach them to not do something is playing time. And if you don't do that, I don't think you're serious. I never think you're serious. And my guess is, though I don't know, but my guess is that I don't think that they think you're serious either, right? Like, we all know what the score is. You just want to win football games. So I admire Butch Jones for that. Your best offensive player gets caught with marijuana in his car. You got to suspend him, even though, look, that's a big blow to your offense there. That's a big problem. That's a big problem. And I'm not entirely certain that if you're Butch Jones, the temptation wasn't there to go ahead and play those guys anyway, or to make up some nonsense reason why they could play. But he went ahead. He made the suspension. This is not good news for Tennessee. Now I'm all but certain they're not going to beat Kentucky on Saturday. I wasn't sure before, but I'm fairly certain that this Saturday is about to be a really sad day for Tennessee football. Well, not a really sad day. I would say another sad day. It's not looking good. This is not looking like a really good season at all. Like, if you talk about something going from bad to worse, this is one of those things, going from bad to worse. I always say this to people because people act like, you know, like for instance, death is the worst possible thing. Like, no, there's always something worse than death, right? Like, you ever watch that show 100 Ways Not to Die, or like what was the worst deaths or whatever it was? Yeah, it's like there are plenty of things that are worse than dying, right? Like, how you die could be absolutely horrible before you die. Like, there's plenty of things worse than death. If you thought that this season for Vols football couldn't get any worse, no, it can always get worse. Your best players can be suspended. Just ask Florida. Your offense could be on a losing streak. Just ask Vandy. It can always get worse. Always. Yeah, don't think for a second that you can't, that you might just be in one of these seasons where nothing is working out for you, right? And it's not necessarily any single person's fault. It's just a bunch of things coming together and derailing you, which of course is problematic. Clutch with Keon Rose on Nooga Radio and NoogaRadio.com. I'm still hung up on this thing here. This trash talking thing that Florida's doing to Georgia. It's not smart. It's not smart. Florida trash talking Tennessee. Look, man, you've put up many victories against Tennessee, right? And Tennessee has not necessarily shown the mental fortitude to win, even when they should win. Don't do this to Georgia. I know. You've beaten Georgia 3 straight times. There aren't very many guys on that Georgia roster that even remember the last time that school beat Florida. As Kirby Smart wisely pointed out, because he was looking for bulletin board material before the trash talking started. But now you've got Florida players trash talking ahead of this game. And part of me wants to say that this is glorious, but not when I think you're going to lose. I don't think this is glorious when I think you're going to lose, right? So Chauncey Gardner, linebacker, or safety rather, for the Gators, was talking about Jake Fromm and talking about Jake Fromm's success, and he said that he wasn't impressed with Jake Fromm because, quote, he's throwing simple passes. I get it. Anybody can throw a slant, which is somewhat true. Firstly, Jake Fromm doesn't just throw slants. He throws a beautiful 9 route as well. But I get it. Jake Fromm throws like 12, 13, maybe 14 passes in a game. They don't ask him to do much. He's not driving the ship. And I don't even know that that's necessarily good trash talk to point out something that's really obvious to everybody. Jake Fromm is not driving the ship. Right? You really wanted to trash talk somebody. Come out here and say something about Nick Chubb. Come out here and say something about Sony Michel. Right? But you won't. You won't. Because you don't want people making memes of you on Twitter if you get hit with a truck stick. Nobody wants that. You won't. So you'll insult the guy just because he's the quarterback. Doesn't mean he's the one driving the ship. Okay? There are two captains on this ship. Their names are Michelle and Chubb. They drive the ship. Whatever they do, that's what the offense does. And they usually do a whole lot of stepping on fools. Like, that's generally their game, right? So there's that bit of trash talk. And then the other bit of trash talk, which wide receiver Josh Hammond points out that Florida's won 3 straight times against Georgia. Quote, they might be the number 3 team, but they can't beat Florida. Hey, Josh, how about you put away your time machine and stop living in the past? I'm just saying, that seems to be you living in the past, my man. Yes, it's been 3 times in a row that you have beaten this football team. This is a better football team than the ones that you've beaten. This is a better football team, right? And no one has figured out an answer as to how it is that one goes about slowing down Georgia this year. No one's found that answer. Right? Even in the Notre Dame game where they played it conservative on purpose because they weren't sure what Jake Fromm would be capable of. That, I mean, even that game, Notre Dame, who's really good, who's also vying for a playoff spot, very much unlike Florida. There were no answers for Chubb and Michelle in that game either. I mean, what is your point? Right? And I understand it's a rivalry. It's big. You just start talking trash because it's reflexive, right? It just comes out of you. You see those colors and you feel like you have to say something. But don't. The number one rule of trash talk in sports, back it up. Back it up. And they are talking trash in a way that I don't think that they can back this up. I really don't. Clutch with Keon Rose on Nooga Radio, NoogaRadio.com. Last night, the Dodgers beat the Astros in Game 1 of the World Series 3-1. And Game 2 is tonight, Verlander versus Hill. Verlander has been pitching out of his mind since he's shown up in Houston, right? He was already pitching pretty decently well in Detroit, but he's been pitching even better since he's shown up in Houston. And I can't see any way that Verlander doesn't go out there and have a great night tonight. Not a good night, a great night. And I'm looking at it and I go, you know what? I'm going to take Houston for Game 2. I think Houston wins the series. I'm waffling right now, but I think Houston wins the series. I thought LA was going to win last night because it's hard to pick against Kershaw. And for me, it's about that simple, right? Like, I'm not a super baseball analyst. I like baseball and I love watching it, but I'm not a super baseball analyst. I just don't bet against certain guys, and I wouldn't bet against Kershaw. And Verlander versus Hill. Hill's been having a great season in his own right for the Dodgers, but it's hard to bet against Verlander, and it's very hard to bet against Verlander. You know, it's hard to get a bet against Verlander the way he's been pitching since he showed up in Houston. It is. It's a tough one. I'm not entirely certain how the hitting is going to work in this game, though, because I mean, both of these guys are tough to hit. We've got a lot of great pitching matchups in this World Series yet to come. But so far as the pitching goes, like, this is going to be fun. Like, I like pitching duels, so I'm always happy. I'm the guy that if I watch a defensive game in any sport, I'm usually pleased. I like defense a lot. So I'm totally down with the fact that like pitchers might dominate this game and we might not see very much in the way of scoring. But game 2 tonight at 8:09. So there's plenty of time for you to finish listening to this show before you go over and check out the game. I found something very interesting about this matchup coming up between the Patriots and the Chargers, in large part because, the Patriots defense is particularly horrible. And, the Chargers have been bad and then good. Hard to get a read on San Diego there. Now LA. On that one is never going to change properly. I'm going to call them San Diego for the next 35 years. But anyway, Bill Belichick was talking about Phillip Rivers. And when he talks about Phillip Rivers, he compares Phillip Rivers to Tom Brady and to Peyton Manning. He says he's a tremendous player, a great competitor, and a really smart player. I got to know him a little bit out there, and he has a real thirst for knowledge. Not that there's a lot of scheme at the Pro Bowl. I'm not saying that. It's one coverage, but the conversations lead beyond that. How to attack different schemes and so forth. He's a real football guy like Tom Brady, like Peyton Manning, guys like that. They're deep into it. And, the praise goes on and on. He has a ton of experience, Belichick says. He does a great job of making adjustments at the line of scrimmage. Or he sees a certain coverage, he can get into a play that can attack that coverage. He's had a number of checks like that, and it ends up being a big play. Is our coverages not tell him what we're in? That's really suicide, because if you don't, he'll chew that up. I don't know that Bill Belichick has praised anybody this much. I don't even know if Belichick has praised Brady this much. But here's the thing. Though. Phillip Rivers is a great quarterback. And so long as we don't do our due diligence with football correctly, we are always going to overlook guys who are great, right? Like, we treat Phillip Rivers like he is an Eli Manning level quarterback, right? Like Eli Manning and Joe Flacco, and those guys have rings, right? We have legitimate conversations about whether or not Eli is going to go into the Hall of Fame. But Eli's not great. You look at Eli play and you look at Eli's numbers. Eli's not great. Right? And a lot of seasons, whole NFL seasons, Eli doesn't even look good. He doesn't. And yet here we are talking about Hall of Fame with Eli Manning because he's got 2 rings, even though those 2 rings came as a result of him having a great defense. And some serendipitous plays. Some plays that worked out very nicely for him, right? Like, you're not going to say luck as such, but they worked out very, very nicely for him. He's been successful for a very long time for a reason, Phillip Rivers. And I think he is a better quarterback, a far better quarterback than Eli Manning. I think Eli Manning was correct. Eli and Archie, they were correct to wind their ways out of San Diego at the time, because that wasn't a great organization. And can you imagine Eli playing for that organization? It's not a great organization. They've never, in the entire time that they've had Phillip Rivers, they've never gotten him a truly dominant running back. Since LaDainian Tomlinson's been gone, they haven't replaced him with one. They tried many times. Melvin Gordon is their latest attempt, and he's good, but he's not great. They haven't given him a great offensive line. They haven't given him anybody young to replace Antonio Gates at the tight end until this Travis Henry kid that they've got. And they never gave him a great defense. The man's been playing with essentially a horrible team most of his career and somehow has managed to take that horrible team for whatever reason and go in places beyond with it that I'm saying very few quarterbacks would have been able to do. Not very many. Right? That's a team that you could say they haven't had a ton of respect. But trust me, that lack of respect is from how the team is run, much in the way of a team. Right? I mean, it's pretty crazy. Clutch with Keon Rose on Nooga Radio, NoogaRadio.com, which, not to make every comparison a comparison to Marcus Mariota, but I think I will do exactly that because I will. I see it happening with the Titans, but not in the same way. Because another thing that that happened with Phillip Rivers and the Chargers, they never really gave him like a great coach, right? Like, you don't get Brady without Belichick. And you could always ask it like who came first, the chicken or the egg kind of deal. Does Brady make Belichick great, or does Belichick make Brady great? It's probably a combination of the two. You look at a guy like Rivers, and it's like, oh, who's his best coach ever? Mike McCoy? Who is a smart offensive coordinator, but should never have been a head coach? Norv Turner? I mean, there were some good Norv years, and there were some bad Norv years. Fired Norv on a good year, actually. So it's really hard to say. I mean, they never got a great coach. And I look at Marcus Mariota and I go, well, this is a team that has actually constructed itself well, right? The GM, John Robinson, has done a fantastic job in Nashville of putting together a football team that is a competitive one. He's given him the offensive line. He's drafted and signed 2 running backs, right? DeMarco Murray and Derrick Henry. It's hard to tell which guy is going to go off on a given week, but one of them usually does. Drafted him a wide receiver in Corey Davis. We'll see how that pans out. He's got a tight end in Delaney Walker. He's got a decent defense, right? Like, Tennessee's pass rush is solid. It's not great, but it's solid. The defense can get better, but the defense is not the worst defense in the league, and the Chargers have had one of the worst defenses in the league many times. So when you look at it, you go, okay, well, what's the problem? What's the comparison here between Mariota and Rivers? Well, Mariota is a very good quarterback being held back by an offense that doesn't make any sense. It's not a great fit for him, and it doesn't seem to utilize any of his strengths. And we're talking about a guy that's got speed, that's got arm strength, that's got accuracy, that's got vision, and on top of all of that, he's got a very high football IQ, and it doesn't really seem to matter because his coach has a scheme called Exotic Smash Mouth, and we're running that. That's where we are. We're going to run this bogus football scheme that I made up to justify playing football like we're in 1997. But you can't play football like you're in 1997 in 2017 and win. It's not going to work. It doesn't work for anybody, and it's not going to work for them. Okay? I think we have reached that point in his career where, like, we need to realize very early, Mike Mularkey, he's not the guy, and see if we can get somebody that's going to promote offense and promote a young quarterback into his development into a franchise-type guy. Clutch with Keon Rose on 92.7 FM on Nooga Radio, NoogaRadio.com.
News and information, Nooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM. 3, 2, 1. Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4, 92.7 FM's news now.
2 juveniles have been arrested, but 2 more are on the run after a joyride with a stolen car that started on Neville Road in Ottawa. The Hamilton County Sheriff's Office giving chase. The car wrecked into a junction box for a telephone line on Mountain View Road. 2 juveniles ran off, and 2 others were arrested on scene. The Hamilton County Sheriff's Office and the Chattanooga Police Department trying to track down these 2 young people who escaped. The trial of Skylar Allen is set to begin soon in the Lookout Valley triple murder case, but his attorney is wanting a change of venue because of the high-profile nature of the case. There aren't many people around who would serve as jurors who haven't heard of the case already. A co-defendant, Derek Morse, has already been convicted on those counts of murder and sentenced to life in prison without parole. Matthew Cowan, a survivor of the shooting, testified against Morse. Russell Stroud, Nooga Radio News, now.
Traffic, news, and information. Nooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM. Broadcasting live to over 1 million souls in Chattanooga, the Tennessee Valley, and beyond on frequency modulation 92.7. Sean Hannity, 25,000 watts on digital FM 95.3 HD4. CBS Radio News, NASCAR, Bloomberg Markets, David Tulis, streaming strong at NoogaRadio.com. Live on YouTube and Facebook. Nooga Radio, News Talk 92.7. Chattanooga Radio.
Goss Insurance. Yes, we are local. And no, we don't have an 800 number. In fact, our mobile numbers are on our business cards. We live, work, play, and worship in Chattanooga, and we would love to help with your insurance. Business, auto, home, life insurance. Call now, save money. Call Goss Insurance for all your insurance needs. Goss Insurance, 875-2500. 875-2500.
Nooga Radio, digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM knows your opinion is important. So call 800-8949. Agree or disagree. Call 423-800-8949. 800-8949. Nooga Radio, 92.7 FM and 95.3 HD4. News Talk Nooga Radio.
So there's a great article on CBSSports.com about Georgia and how Georgia needs to learn how to finish. Right? Like, this is, for better or for worse, Georgia's biggest challenge on their schedule thus far. Outside of Notre Dame, that is, right? Outside of Notre Dame, challenge on Georgia's schedule. Right? Like, they're playing Florida. It's a rival. They are projected to win by 2 touchdowns. I believe the line that Vegas has is 13 and a half. 13 and a half. They're 13 and a half point favorites. And the one thing you don't want to do if you're Georgia, right, is lose a game that people fully expect you to win. First off, that is the very reason Mark Richt was fired from Georgia. Because he was getting them 10 wins a year. It's not like Mark Richt was not a good coach, but you wanted to go, if you were Georgia, to the next level. When you see yourself with a very capable football team and you see yourself able to win a lot of games, the thing that you want to be able to do is finish. The thing that you want to be able to do is close out. And that means beating opponents you're supposed to beat, but maybe in high pressure situations. There's 6 weeks left in this season. And Georgia needs to finish this season undefeated if they want to make the playoff. And it would be an absolute shame if they did not. Like, you can't get tripped up. Right? Like, you have a schedule that is very favorable to you, right? You don't have Bama, you don't have LSU, you don't have Texas A&M. Those are some of the tougher teams to play in this conference, and you didn't draw any of those teams, right? You got good in a league with a bunch of tough teams and didn't really have to play the toughest ones. Right? Like, not really. And here you are, you're playing Florida. And you're like, man, this is crazy. You've got to finish out the season. There's 6 weeks left in the season. A bunch of beatable teams left on that schedule. And I'll pull it up right here. But there are a bunch of beatable teams left out on that schedule. And it would be a shame if, A, you lost to Florida, because Florida's like prime beatable team number 1. It would be an absolute shame if you lost to that school. First off, because of all the trash that they are talking. Who would want to confirm that? Who would want to give any credence to that at all? Right? You're 7-0. They're 3-3. There's no way. Right? You're 13-point favorites, and the only reason why it's not even bigger than that is because you're playing in the swamp. Right? Like, you're not playing there, and who even knows? I think that this game is going to be even more lopsided than that, because I haven't seen anything from Georgia that says if a team wants to run the ball right down their throat, that there's anything that the Gators can do to stop it. But on Georgia's schedule is left Florida, is South Carolina, Auburn. Right? Like, the toughest games Florida will have played this season would be Notre Dame, Auburn, and Florida. And Florida ain't in the same class as Auburn and Notre Dame. Season where you get to avoid and duck Bama, LSU. Got to put something together here and finish out this season. Go ahead, make it hard on the committee. Now, that Auburn game is not a gimme. That one is not a gimme. I don't even know what to tell you about that one. But I will say this. You've got a shot at beating Auburn. Just don't forget, they can run the ball too. Interesting matchups left in the SEC. But beating your rivals is where it counts, man. And that's huge. Clutch with Keon Rose on 92.7 FM, Nooga Radio, NoogaRadio.com. So I've been talking about the SEC coaches this week. I think the SEC has something in the way of a coaching problem. They do, because the results are not necessarily lining up with what you'd expect from the SEC, right? Like, this is a great football conference, a lot of historically successful schools. Why is it that the SEC has trouble winning football games? Well, I think a lot of it has to do with coaching. I, for one, am not of this. The SEC doesn't have great quarterbacks. I think the quarterbacks are here. I'm sorry, but I think Kyle Shermer is a really good quarterback, and I think Drew Lock is a really good quarterback. I'm a big fan of Jalen Hurts. I think he's a fantastic quarterback. Georgia's got 2 in Eason and Fromm. Jake Fromm is the highest rated quarterback on quarterback rating in the SEC. Volume of passes, but he's very accurate in the passes that he has thrown. And say what you want about even Tennessee, but Garantano's shown a ton of promise. Felipe Franks has shown a ton of promise. The quarterbacks are here. I mean, you really can't make that quarterback argument so far as the SEC goes. Right? And I didn't even mention Shea Patterson. Didn't even mention Nick Fitzgerald. The SEC is pretty well stocked at quarterback, right? And it's always been stocked at the running back positions. Like, pick an SEC team, most of them can run on some level. And defensively, most of these schools are good, right? If you're not Missouri and you're not Kentucky, schools can defend. So to me, the issue has to be coaching. It has to be either recruiting X's and O's or motivation, all of which falls underneath the purview of the coach. Outside of Nick Saban, who are these great coaches in the SEC? Well, here are the top coaches in the SEC so far as I'm concerned, just based on the results that I've seen over the last few years. You'd have to say Nick Saban. Mullen, who wins himself almost 9 or 10 games a year at a college that has not been a historically successful college and is not even the best college in its state. Smart. Nick Saban is obviously the highest paid coach in college football, $11.1 million salary with a buyout of $26.9 million. So it's like, even if Nick Saban were to lose out this year and find a way to bomb this wonderful season that it is that they're having, you couldn't fire Nick Saban if you wanted to. The buyout is so large, it wouldn't make any sense. You could make a very strong argument for Kirby Smart as well. Kirby Smart's making $3.75 million, $8 million buyout. That's a huge buyout, right? And most of the SEC coaches are some of the top paid coaches in college football, period, which makes sense because college football is king in the SEC. The issue here is that, are you getting the most bang for your buck? Arkansas, and you've got Brett Bielema. Can you justify paying Brett Bielema $4.25 million a year with the results that you are getting out of Brett Bielema? Can you justify, if you are Tennessee, paying Butch Jones $4.1 million if you are getting the results from Butch Jones that you are getting? This is the annual salary. Can you justify it? Because I don't think you can. Right? And by the way, one reason why Tennessee, I know that we're talking about firing Butch Jones and that conversation has had to come up many times this week. But if you're Tennessee and you don't fire Butch Jones, that $8.1 million buyout, I don't blame you. I don't blame you for looking at that price tag and going, ugh. Right? Texas A&M, Kevin Sumlin was on the hot seat, $5 million, but his buyout is $10.4 million. His buyout is 2 times what it costs to just pay him in a year. So, of firing Kevin Sumlin, you have to realize that that's what you would owe him to not coach football for you. It is a steep price to pay someone to not do a job for you. Right? Like that is, and I've said this many times, that is my favorite job. That is the job that I want. I want someone to tell me one day, Keon, you are horrible at coaching football. This is the money that I will pay you to not coach for me. That would be a dream come true. That would be an absolute dream come true. You know? So that to me is the issue here that we have, because you've got a bunch of guys that are paid, in a similar ballpark anyway, of guys like Dabo Swinney. Dabo Swinney makes $8.5 million. He's just come off a national title in the ACC. And he only makes $3 million more than Kevin Sumlin, who hasn't sniffed an SEC West divisional anything his entire time at Texas A&M. Right? We're in the same ballpark with Gus Malzahn and Dan Mullen, and none of those guys have come close. And I know that a lot of that speaks to how dominant Alabama has been, but come on. I mean, this is absolutely crazy. I mean, the SEC has a problem, I think, too, with like hiring coaches inside of its own conference, hiring coaches inside the league, instead of taking the leap. I know, taking a risk and going and hiring coaches outside, hiring coaches elsewhere. 92.7 Nooga Radio, NoogaRadio.com. I mean, if you're gonna go ahead and pay a guy a lot of money to be your coach, I say go ahead and get a premier guy, get a big name guy, and right your ship. So Lane Kiffin is like Jim Harbaugh with none of the charm. Lane Kiffin is like Jim Harbaugh at a worse school and with less winning. because he's just as goofy, crazy, and weird, but we hate him more. So Lane Kiffin is reaching out to Lamar Jackson on Twitter because Lane Kiffin is a young enough coach that if he's on Twitter, that's not weird. Right? And so he's been trying to get Lamar Jackson to come to Florida Atlantic University. Anytime Lamar Jackson tweets something, he responds to Lamar Jackson with "come to FAU." It's hard to tell what's going on there. First off, you can't recruit people like that. That's not of course, I mean, the NCAA is probably not cool with that. But apart from that, it's just weird. I know that Lane Kiffin doesn't think that these things will actually work, or at least I believe that Lane Kiffin doesn't think that these things will actually work. And I think that he's just being goofy and crazy and weird. And I hope that that's what's happening. But this is bizarre, though. It's very, very much bizarre. I'm not entirely understanding what the point of him doing this is. And it's supposed to be funny and it's supposed to be cool because Lane Kiffin is the funny, cool coach. Yeah. But I just don't, I'm not following it. There are things that I think are humorous and that are funny to Lane Kiffin and like nobody else. That's what I think. I think he finds it funny and about nobody else finds it funny. And it's like, no, Jim Harbaugh would probably find that funny, but I don't know. When Jim Harbaugh does it, we would have liked it. We would have liked it better. Clutch with Keon Rose on 92.7 FM, Nooga Radio, NoogaRadio.com. And so I'm going to shift gears here to the NFL, moving towards some Steelers talk here because the Martavis Bryant has been demoted to the scout team. And he wants to be, well, he said he wanted to be traded, and he said it was a joke last week, but apparently it's not a joke. They're going to play Detroit. I'm not entirely certain what's going on with Martavis Bryant. But Martavis Bryant thinks that he is better than he is as a football player. Because you cannot continue to piss off everybody around you, be in a position to be on your team, to expect to be on a position where you are contributing as a football player, like that. Unless you are a major star. Martavis Bryant is a very good football player, but you know what he's not? He's not a great football player, and certainly not a great enough football player to garner the kind of slack that it takes. But is that he is behaving. On Wednesday, Martavis Bryant told reporters that he didn't play against the Lions on Sunday because of, quote, yeah, so he knows. Right? He called out an opposing player on his Instagram account, which I mean, I guess that's what passes for a slight these days. We are living in complicated times. What I'm trying to figure out, though, is why can't Martavis Bryant just go quietly? Why can't he just put his head down and do the thing that he's supposed to do, that he gets paid to do? He's out here asking for trades and then joking about the trade, saying that he joked about getting traded to the Warriors. He calls out another wide receiver on Instagram. He hasn't played well this season. Like, if you act out, teams will try and do a lot to keep you happy. In professional sports, right? Like I remember reading this article, this anecdote from a European player who came to Europe and he came from Europe and I forget his name, but he played for the Lakers last season. And he He said he didn't understand American sports, that a lot of these athletes, a lot of our American athletes get taken care of in a way that European guys do not get taken care of, which I find to be, well, yeah, obviously basketball's not as popular in Europe. Of course you're not going to get taken care of that way, but you don't think Ronaldo gets taken care of? That's the most popular sport in your country. Of course he gets taken care of. Yeah. So yeah, basketball players get taken care of differently over here. But yeah, he couldn't understand how it is. But professional sports franchises in America, if you are in one of the major sports, which I would say baseball, football, basketball, if you are one of those sports and you or even a really, really good player that people need, they'll take care of you. They will try to take care of you. They will try and protect you from the media. They'll try and coddle you a little bit. Don't. That is an indication of what they think about you. And the fact that the Steelers are not even trying to help Martavis Bryant right now tells us what the Steelers think of Martavis Bryant. And they're not about to help him. Because Antonio Brown last year, he had a social media snafu, slip up. I don't believe that they demoted him to the scout team. Be incorrect on that one. But I don't believe that there was a demotion involved in that process. Care of Antonio Brown, because Antonio Brown is one of the guys that matter. And on Pittsburgh, there are only 3 guys that matter. It's Antonio Brown. There's Le'Veon Bell. If your name isn't one of those 3 names, it's for you. Team's not taking care of you. And you can figure it out for every player on every team. There are some guys, usually one of them is the quarterback. The other guys, not so much. Peterson got traded to the Arizona Cardinals, but when he was with the Saints, Sean Payton had no problems whatsoever instantly benching Adrian Peterson. And Adrian Peterson was upset and pissed off, but what is he going to do? Sean Payton thought of him. I'm not taking care of you. It's not about to happen because I don't think you're that good. Part of it. I just don't think you're that good. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. Clutch with Keon Rose on Nooga Radio, NoogaRadio.com. The World Series in about 20 minutes. Opening pitch is set for 8:09. And be watching the World Series. If you want to flip-flop between channels, we'll be doing. Then you can join me in watching the Wizards play basketball tonight. It's Wall versus Ball. John Wall versus Lonzo Ball. Lonzo Ball has said, LeVar Ball has said that his son is not losing a second time this week. He pretty much called out the Wizards. The Wizards have not taken this lightly. And Wizards center Marcin Gortat said that John Wall will torture Lonzo for 48 minutes. And now the whole world is watching to see how bad John Wall is going to huff Lonzo's life, huff his soul out of his body. And I am telling you, the young man's going to get embarrassed tonight. I think he's going to get embarrassed tonight. I do. I don't know. I'm watching a lot of the analysts talk about this game, and they're going, well, if John tries to drop 50 on him and he plays outside of his game, that's not going to be a good look for him because blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, no, it'll be a great look for him because he's going to smash this rook because that's what happens to you when you're a rookie in sports. People try and embarrass you because you're a rookie. Everybody tries to give you that welcome to the NBA, welcome to the NFL, welcome moment because you're a rookie. Only this rookie has a dad with a big mouth who just yaks, which is even more reason for people to try and show up and show you out. This is not a matter of if John Wall makes Lonzo look bad, right? John's going to make Lonzo look bad. Did we forget already what he did to Dennis Schroeder in the playoffs? The blank is wrong with you, boy. That's one of the best playoff moments ever. That was the best playoff series. in the whole playoffs. In the whole playoffs. Just for that moment. When John Wall looked another grown man in his eyes and asked him what the blank was wrong with him. You're telling me that's not going to happen tonight to Lonzo? Get out of here. Clutch with Keon Rose on Nooga Radio, NoogaRadio.com, 92.7 FM. See you all tomorrow.
The Tennessee Valley's news talk leader, Nooga Radio, digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio, digital FM 95.3 HD4, 92.7 FM's news now.
2 juveniles have been arrested, but 2 more are on the run after a joyride with a stolen car that started on Neville Road in Ottawa. The Hamilton County Sheriff's Office giving chase. The car wrecked into a junction box for a telephone line on Mountain View Road. 2 juveniles ran off, and 2 others were arrested on scene. The Hamilton County Sheriff's Office and the Chattanooga Police Department trying to track down these 2 young people who escaped. The trial of Skylar Allen is set to begin soon in the Lookout Valley triple murder case, but his attorney is wanting a change of venue because of the high-profile nature of the case. There aren't many people around who would serve as jurors who haven't heard of the case already. A co-defendant, Derek Morris, has already been convicted on those counts of murder and sentenced to life in prison without parole. Matthew Cowan, a survivor of the shooting, testified against Morse. Russell Stroud, Nooga Radio News, now.
The Tennessee Valley's news talk leader, Nooga Radio, digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM.
Power Hour News at noon and 9 being brought to you by Greg's Sandwich Works, featuring the best cuts of meats for your sandwich. Greg's Super Spuds, wraps and the most delicious salads in Chattanooga. Greg's Sandwich Works, 6337 East Brainerd Road, Chattanooga.
As an independent agent, Goss represents more than 50 of the leading companies. Goss does the shopping and you save. Goss Insurance for your auto, business, home, and life insurance. 875-2500 Goss Insurance.
Hey, dude, check this out. Have you ever seen one so big?
Whoa, look at the size of that.
Look at this little itty-bitty one.
Wow, that's really small.
They have them big, small, and everything in between. You'll always find the biggest variety of knives at the knife shop at Frost Cutlery in Ottawa. We're talking about over 40 brands of knives, including Benchmade, WR Case & Sons, Booker, and all the Frost Cutlery brands. Now, Sam, you've been to the cutlery shop. Is it amazing?
Spectacular. The knife shop at Frost Cutlery in Ottawa. They have knives, swords, kitchen knives, ammo, and reloading supplies, plus survival gear.
It's the knife shop at Frost Cutlery, open 7 days a week. Hey, girls, you're going to love this. We're going to the knife shop.
Hey, let's not tell them they have ammo and loading supplies.
The Knife Shop at Frost Cutlery opens 7 days a week. You'll always find the biggest variety of knives. You're going to love the Knife Shop at Frost Cutlery in Ottawa. The Knife Shop.
And tell them David Tulis sent you.
Hi, this is Eric Pelton. Taxes, accounting, business advice. I've got a neat brochure, 12 ways to improve your business profits. Come on by for a free consultation and we'll give you a copy. E.J. Pelton Company, 332-3339.
Cash, 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 and more cash. Watch it gush out of your TV. Rick Davis is on national TV. Wow. Golden diamonds, coins, and more riches. Rick's selling, Rick's buying, and he's on national TV. Watch him Wednesday, 11 p.m., right after the Judy O'Neill Talk Show. North Georgia Cable TV 265. You won't want to miss it. It's a mountain of cash, cash, cash. And it's catching the Hollywood spotlight. Hey, if one day hasn't got your head spinning, how about a second? Rick Davis is on Fridays, Channel 12, 10:30 a.m., right before The Price is Right. You gotta see it to believe it. Wednesday, 11 p.m., North Georgia Cable Channel 265. Friday, 10:30 a.m. on TV 12. 2 big shows every week. Rick Davis Golden Diamonds. You know where it is. Brainerd Road, Chattanooga. Cash, 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 and more cash.
If I were a rich man.
Hey, Mom.
Yes, Summer.
I know what I'd like to do for Christmas this year. Take shoeboxes full of goodies to the homeless military veterans.
What would go into these shoeboxes?
Toothbrushes, toothpaste, dental floss, deodorant, chapsticks, shampoo, soap, hand warmers, hand sanitizer, socks, gloves, toboggans, small Bibles, blankets, snacks, and cough drops.
Where can people donate these items?
Alpine Crest Elementary School, Sonic on Hickson Pike next to Frontrunner, Chick-fil-A in Northgate Mall in Hickson, Greg's Sandwich Works, 6337 East Brainerd Road, and Nooga Radio on Hickson Pike.
When will we distribute the shoeboxes?
On November 10th from 11 to 12:30 and December 15th from 10:30 to 12:30 at the Community Kitchen on East 11th Street, downtown Chattanooga. Please help us in donating these items for our shoebox campaign. No veteran should ever go homeless.
Broadcasting live to over 1 million souls in Chattanooga, the Tennessee Valley, and beyond on frequency modulation 92.7. Sean Hannity, 25,000 watts on digital FM 95.3 HD4. CBS Radio News. NASCAR, Bloomberg Markets, David Tulis, streaming strong at Noogaradio.com. Live on YouTube and Facebook. Nooga Radio, News Talk 92.7. Chattanooga Radio.
WDLZ HD4 Ottawa, W224AZ Chattanooga,
92.7, digital FM 95.3 HD4 Chattanooga.
CBS News, I'm Pam Coulter. Trump supporters are celebrating Arizona Senator Jeff Flake's decision not to run for re-election. He cited the poisonous political atmosphere. But his departure will put a GOP-held seat up for grabs next year. CBS's Nancy Cordes has more.
The president insisted today that party friction has been overblown. He repeatedly mentioned the standing ovations he got at yesterday's lunch with Senate Republicans.
I think the press makes me more uncivil than I am.
Flake's decision to retire was hailed as a victory by presidential allies like Steve Bannon, but Senate Republicans argue